How's it going, everyone? I hope you're all doing good. My name is Dan, as some of you might already know. I don't introduce myself in my videos anymore. I used to always say, my name is Dan at the start of them, but now I just get right into it, which is probably for the best, right? I mean, nobody likes long intros, and that's what this is becoming. So without dragging on, today I'm going to talk about my approach to learning things. Now, first of all, the content on this channel surrounds the subject of drawing, right? This is an art channel, so what I'm going to be discussing will inevitably relate to drawing or learning how to draw. But it's important for me to note that all of this will apply to learning anything. And again, I don't have all of the answers. This is just my own approach to learning something that's somewhat evolved over the years. You know, this is what works for me, but I'm sure that some of what I'll be talking about will also be of some use to you, no matter what it is you want to learn or are in the process of learning. So to give some context to all of this, it was only when I was around 20 years old, I'd say, when I started to care more about learning, because when I was growing up, you know, going through school and that, I was never paying much attention. I mean, I was never performing poorly, but in retrospect, I know now that I could have done better, right? I could have studied more and taken my education more seriously, but I can't really blame myself for not doing that. I mean, I did average, so I got by and I was able to pursue what I wanted to do after school, so that's okay. But yeah, when I was younger, I wasn't all that interested in my schoolwork. I was always well behaved, but I was occupied with doing other things, you know, going out with my mates or playing video games. I did play a lot of video games when I was younger, but I did still enjoy art, and I felt as if it was something that I was good at, you know. I wouldn't draw that often back then, but I did enjoy drawing, and I was always aware that I was more creative. You know, I'd happily spend all day making something, working on my art, as opposed to sitting a 1 hour exam. I really hated exams, and when I do think back now, I realise that I wasn't all to blame for my lack of interest in a lot of the subjects at school. You know, I do think that the educational system, the way that it's structured, is quite inefficient, honestly, and I think the reason for this, the underlying problem, is that it attempts to educate everyone the same way. It puts everyone under the same umbrella without any consideration for the individual. You know, everyone is different, we all have our own strengths and weaknesses, our own motives and ideas. It's so varied, the range of characters that this system is meant to be designed for, but yet there's no real variation in how they test their abilities, right? And I'm honestly commenting on this without a better solution. The reality is it's a hard task to educate so many people at once, and so it's understandable why such a system is in place. That's why everyone is forced to attend the same classes, because although you might not like maths, for instance, some other kid might really enjoy maths, and so it does give everyone the same opportunity to experience these subjects, and so in some regard it's not all that bad, but I do think that errors lie in when it comes to how they assess everyone's ability. Anyways, it's only when you get a little older and are given some independence that you start to find your feet, and then you also take on more responsibility. I mean, in my experience, you could kind of get away with not taking school too seriously, but then when you go to college, like we do here in the UK, and you have the option of choosing the subjects that you'd like to pursue further, well then it's more on you, right? You've voluntarily chosen to do this, so there's not really many excuses, especially when independent learning is encouraged. You know, that's what might be wrong. You see, school, in my opinion, doesn't really teach you how to learn, and then you go out into the real world unequipped with one of, if not the most essential skills around, the ability to educate yourself. And this was my experience, right? It was when I had finished college and was attending university when I realised that it's really up to you to learn and perform well. The lecturers are there, and they are a source of information that you have to process. You still have to do most of the work, and so it was only when I realised this that I started to rearrange my priorities, right? And I also started to question what I really wanted to do with my life. I had this long road ahead of me, and so it was in my best interest to do something that I could enjoy, or something that at least didn't make each day miserable. And so it was also out of fear, in a way. I was getting older, and you kind of need to set yourself up. You need to lay a good foundation for yourself before you are then able to take more on board and open yourself up to other opportunities. And so that's what I started to do. I started to try and think long term, right? I didn't start making YouTube videos to see it pay off after 10 videos. I started to make them for in 2 years' time, 100 videos down the line. And YouTube was something that I had already started doing on the side as I was attending university. And my biggest reason for doing it was not only did I enjoy doing it, but I also didn't want to write off my chances of having somewhat of an art career. Even if it was more of a pastime, I always enjoyed drawing, and that's always stayed with me throughout my life. Anyways, I was at university and I was studying architecture, which is a creative subject, so I knew I was in the right place doing what I wanted to do, and that in itself was likely the most important thing, right? The fact that I wanted to be there. You're never going to reach your potential if you don't enjoy what you do. So I would spend my days there at university and then come home and work on some drawings and make YouTube videos. And I think it was the only time in my life so far where I was able to see a future ahead of me that I was excited for, right? Now, over this time, those 3 years of doing both a degree in architecture and doing YouTube, I started to develop I want to say mindset, but that's kind of cliche, but it was. I mean, it was a broader understanding of why I am doing what I was doing. And that's where we have to start, I think. It's understanding the reason for why you should do something that really propels you forward. The reason why I started YouTube was to use it as a means of documentation, right? All of these audio logs, tutorials, study sessions, and these videos that I've made over the years, these document my experience in the pursuit of learning how to draw. The reason I chose to study architecture was, I'd say, for a few reasons. One reason was that I enjoyed the subject and had an interest in it, and so if I was going to get a job, which would probably be a 9-to-5 day job, I'd want to be doing something that I enjoy. There's also room to grow and improve in that line of work, and so whether I realised it back then or not, I'm glad that I found something like that. Anyways, I had more reasons than I needed, and so when I would wake up early to do some drawing in the morning before attending university, I wouldn't feel as if I wanted to get right back into bed, right? I mean, some days I would, but throughout most of my days, I followed a routine, which isn't too different to the routine that I have now. I mean, now I do work a 9-to-5 day job, and so I'm still waking up early to do some drawing and make these videos, and that works well for me. I don't want to discuss my routine too much because I think I've gone over it in a previous video, but yeah, the reason why you are doing what you want to do is the most important thing to establish at the start. Then you can remind yourself of that reason why whenever you start to question yourself. Now, when it comes to learning, in my experience, I've found that you tend to go through various stages, and it's the earlier stages that are the most challenging. That's when a lot of people give up. Let's say you want to learn something and whatever it is you want to learn is completely new to you. And by the way, I'm discussing all of this in context of having to teach yourself, right? You don't have a teacher who you can rely on for guidance, at least not someone who you are paying to teach you. You do have access to the internet's free resources and some books, let's say, but nobody is taking responsibility to teach you other than yourself. It's just you on your own, not knowing where to start, because you're looking at this daunting subject or whatever it is that you want to learn, and it's completely foreign to you. And I can relate to this from my own experience, with a more recent example being that I have started to learn some new software at work called Grasshopper, and some of you might have even heard of it. It's a visual programming software that comes as an extension to the modelling software that I use called Rhino. And so that's what I use to create a lot of the typical models you might see when you look at some architectural work. Anyways, I decided to learn this to essentially get better at my job, right? Anyways, a few months ago when I had opened up that software for the first time, I had no idea what I was looking at. It was all completely overwhelming and I had no idea where to start. But the thing is, I expected this going in. I wasn't put off or intimidated by it because I was expecting it. And so you just have to laugh at yourself and your own inexperience at this stage and just take some small baby steps. Now, one thing that really helped me was to set some short-term goals as well as a long-term goal. And these short-term goals can be very straightforward. For instance, I set myself the task of modelling a simple box using this software, which involved me having to figure out which components to use and how to navigate the software. In fact, what I did was I googled every query that I had, and fortunately there is a forum online that consists of a community of people invested in learning or teaching that software. So I browsed many of the pages on this forum, figuring it out step by step how to model this simple box, and there were many ways to go about it, but I eventually got there. And so then I had this box modelled, but I had also gotten some experience using the software's basic components, which I'll likely be relying on. And so I set myself another small task after that, which introduced some more functions and parts of the software. And slowly but surely, with the help of what I was finding out online, I started to familiarise myself with this software. Now, I can't understate the importance of the internet, right? We are so fortunate now to have access to this tool. You can rely on it to find out information on anything. No matter what you want to do, you'll be able to learn more about it online. Now, although we do have the internet to lean on, it can still be a daunting task learning something new. That's why I want to express the importance of being patient. It's also about perseverance, right? You need to, like I said, be aware of the fact that you're not going to know anything at the start, and most of the time you're not going to pick it up easily. You have to work at a snail's pace, but do your best to enjoy the smaller accomplishments. Like when I had finally modelled this box, it was a step in the right direction, and I made sure to recognise that. Also, to help enjoy the tedious process of learning, I find it useful to keep a notebook, and this notebook is a means of documenting and also evidencing your progress, which for me, that ties back into my why. Wouldn't it be good to be able to look back and see how you got to the point that you'll eventually get to, and see the steps that it took to get there? It can be like a diary of some kind where you note down anything of use. That is very effective. I did the same when I was learning Grasshopper. I have a notebook dedicated to it. Now, the final bit of advice that I want to give here is the importance of consistency. You have to show up and put in as much practice as you can each day. In fact, as I said, as much practice as you can, but I take that back because I think even just 1 hour a day, if that's all you can afford, that's enough to pay off over the long run. 1 hour each day will add up over time. Now, if you miss a few days, that's forgivable, but missing a few months might set you back a little bit, and so I, at least with what I'm learning, try to do an hour a day. And I mean, it's part of my routine now to do 3 hours of drawing and YouTube work each day, so I can't fit much more than an hour in when I also have to work and, enjoy some downtime at the same time. But you will be able to make time if you really wanted to do something. I've made some videos on the importance of consistency in the past, so I won't go on about that, but I hope you found all of what I've discussed today useful. And as I said earlier, although I was talking about this new software that I'm learning as an example, in fact that's what inspired me to make this video, you know, this still applies to drawing and anything else. In fact, as I mentioned, this channel is a means for me to document my progress, whether it's through the study session videos or these audio logs. I'm always happy to share these things with you. Anyways, if you did find this video useful, then be sure to leave a like because it helps me out. And with that being said, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the content I create, then do consider becoming a patron on Patreon. You will gain access to exclusive tutorials, study documents, process papers, real-time drawing footage and more. Plus, you will also be supporting me in a more personal way. Other than that, thank you for watching this video and I'll see you soon.